Former Minister of International Relations Naledi Pandor has praised South Africa's measured approach to diplomatic tensions stemming from allegations made by the Afrikaner rights group Afriforum. However, she cautioned that while restraint is valuable, the country must accelerate its diplomatic efforts to counter misinformation. The controversy erupted after Afriforum allegedly provided misleading information to the United States, leading to claims of widespread attacks on white South African farmers. The allegations gained international traction, prompting the US President Donald Trump to weigh in, even suggesting possible sanctions against South Africa. Trump went further, announcing that his administration would offer white South Africans sanctuary under the U.S. refugee admissions program, and offer Afriforum later declined. Speaking on the sidelines of a memorial service for former Namibian President Dr. Sam Tshafishuna Nujoma in Pretoria this week, Pandor did not mince words about Afriforum's role, and said for some time, Afriforum has attempted to present itself as a civil society group, but it has become clear their intentions are racial in character. There's nothing civil about it. It is neither inclusive nor respectful of our constitution. When institutions reveal their true nature, you know how to respond to them. When asked whether the South African government had handled the crisis effectively, Pandor offered a measured response and said, "I think the government has reacted well. Knee-jerk responses can create uncomfortable situations, so calmness is important, but there is a need to move more swiftly, particularly regarding the diplomatic actions President Ramaphosa outlined in his State of the Nation address." She stressed that South Africa's diplomatic envoys should already be engaging with the US officials and seeking broader international support, and said, "I believe the envoys should be in discussions with the US counterparts and reaching out to allies beyond government. However, if we overreact, we risk playing into someone else's game, which doesn't help." While Pandor refrained from directly criticizing Trump, she suggested that his stance was based on misinformation and said, "I generally avoid negative commentary on heads of state, but I believe he is being misinformed by our own South Africans. They, Afriforum, have a duty to correct the misrepresentations they've spread about our country." She emphasized the need for South Africa to improve its international communication strategy and said, "We must enhance the flow of accurate information through stronger engagement with all interlocutors in the US." Pandor also took a moment to pay tribute to the South African soldiers killed last month in Goma, Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The soldiers were part of the peacemaking force when they lost their lives in clashes between government troops and M23 rebels. She said South Africa was fulfilling an important international duty. "We have a mandate to silence the guns on the continent, and we must play our part. I am deeply saddened by the loss of our soldiers in such tragic circumstances and extend my condolences to their families." She underscored the significance of their sacrifice, calling them heroes dedicated to ensuring peace in Africa, and said, as stated at their funerals, those soldiers gave their lives to prevent Africa from falling into conflict and civil war. Even for the communities in the Eastern DRC, these soldiers meant a great deal and will always be remembered. Meanwhile, the economic freedom fighters have also called on the Government of National Unity to classify Afriforum and Solidarity Movement as domestic terrorist organizations, accusing them of spreading misinformation and attempting to undermine South Africa's stability. In a statement released this morning, Economic Freedom Fighters National Spokesperson Sinaw Tambo condemned the organization's actions, saying they pose a threat to the country's sovereignty. The statement reads as follows: "The Economic Freedom Fighters are disgusted by the attempt of the right-wing groups Afriforum and Solidarity Movement to mobilize through memorandums to the United States of America's government to interfere in the domestic affairs of the country in what should be viewed as treasonous acts by both Afriforum and Solidarity Movement. They were seeking aid from the US to fund the African minorities for security and training structures meant for their exclusive benefits, to perpetuate their narrow political interest, and for their inherent beliefs to be viewed as a privileged group. In essence, Afriforum and Solidarity Movement are asking Trump to help them petition South Africa 140 years after the Berlin Conference. These racist right-wing organizations are asking a major Western power to help them position South Africa and create a whites-only enclave at the southern tip of Africa. We are not surprised that these right-wing movements have rejected the offer to be refugees in the US and instead opted to keep the white minority privileges they enjoy in South Africa. And they keep their hectares of land and farms that they own at the exclusion of the black majority. Economically speaking, these racist organizations will never leave South Africa as they know that it is their heaven, where they can exploit Africans for cheap, disposable labor while enjoying the fruits of the land they acquired through violent dispossession. Furthermore, these organizations seek to circumvent the implementation of the Bella Act, NHI, and the Expropriation Bill by seeking a foreign state to meddle in the affairs of South Africa by putting pressure on the government to repeal this act. If these demands were to be carried out by the government, it will mean the loss of our sovereignty as a state. Additionally, the request for funding of African security structures means that they want resources for the military training of self-defense units and commandos to launch a coup against a democratic state to enforce whites-only homelands and succession from the republic. The US is also known to fund and arm anti-government rebels such as UNITA, which waged a decades-long civil war against the Angolan government, serving as a tool for Western imperialist interest in the region. Renamo, which was similarly supported to destabilize the Mozambican government and prevent socialist progress in the region, as well as Islamic militant groups in Afghanistan and other countries. Furthermore, it was the US that trained and funded Osama bin Laden and other various groups that launched regime change in Libya, Syria, and Cuba. The fingerprints of the US's destabilization tactics are evident across the world, and their support for African right-wing extremists would follow the same pattern. This is treasonous and should have our government's full attention. South Africa, in a democratic country that follows due process in making and passing laws, with members of the public being consulted before any laws are enacted. For Afriforum to call for a foreign country to apply pressure in order to change certain laws is anti-democratic and interferes with the long-established international principles of non-interference in domestic affairs of sovereign nations. It comes as no surprise that these right-wing organizations are not concerned about the cutting off of funding for PEPFAR, which helps to fight HIV and AIDS. They are not concerned about it because, in their minds, HIV and AIDS affect black people in the majority. Instead, they are fighting to keep AGOA, as that is their direct business interest that mainly benefits whites who own and control the means of production in our country. For Trump to continue making ill-informed decisions exposes the narrow political views that he holds as an individual and his complete disregard for diplomatic relations between the US and South Africa. By failing to engage his counterparts, his administration's willingness to entertain these treasonous demands of Afriforum and solidarity speaks volumes about their shared reactionary and racist agenda. We therefore call on the so-called Government of National Unity to designate Afriforum and Solidarity Movement as domestic terrorist organizations actively working against the interest of the Republic by spreading lies and misinformation across borders. Their actions are a direct threat to the stability and sovereignty of South Africa, and they must be treated as such. What's your take on this one, people? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more news.